Walk into the home of someone who has lived past 100, and the first thing you tend to notice is what isn't there. No clutter blocking the hallway, no stack of pill bottles nobody remembers filling, no glowing screen humming in the bedroom at midnight. Their homes often look almost plain, ordinary, easy to move through. And that might be part of the point, because when researchers look at people who reach very old age in good shape, they don't just study what these folks eat or how they exercise, they study the spaces they live in, the things they keep, and just as often the things they quietly got rid of years ago. Today we're looking at 15 of them. Here's the thing most longevity advice skips. You spend the majority of your life inside your own home. That's where you sleep, eat, move, rest, and age, and your home is either working with you or quietly working against you. For a younger person, a cluttered floor or a bad mattress is an annoyance. For someone in their 70s, 80s, or 90s, those same things can shape whether they stay independent or lose it. A single fall can end a person's independence overnight. A pantry full of the wrong food can nudge blood pressure and blood sugar in the wrong direction for years. Poor sleep can chip away at memory and mood. None of this happens in a dramatic moment. It happens slowly, through the environment you barely think about anymore. Now, a fair warning before we start. Getting rid of these 15 things will not by itself get anyone to 100. Longevity is tangled up with genetics, income, access to good health care, and plain luck. What we can say is that many of these items are linked in the research with the exact problems that steal independence as people age. Falls, poor sleep, heart and metabolic trouble. So think of this less as a magic checklist and more as a way of removing friction from the years ahead. Number 1, loose throw rugs. Let's start with the single most underrated hazard in an American home. That small rug by the front door, the runner in the hallway, the bath mat that slides. They look harmless, cozy even. But loose rugs are one of the most common tripping hazards for older adults, and falls are among the leading causes of serious injury after 70. Here's what's easy to miss. You don't trip on a rug because you're careless. You trip because as we age, our gait changes, our feet lift a little less, and our balance takes a fraction of a second longer to correct. Homes where people stay mobile into their 90s tend to have bare, even floors or rugs taped down flat. It's a tiny change, but it removes a risk that shows up over and over in fall research. Number 2, clutter piled on floors and stairs, shoes by the door, a basket of laundry on the landing, boxes that were supposed to go to the garage 6 months ago. On its own, a little mess is nothing. But clutter in your walking paths does 2 things at once. It creates obstacles right where you need clear footing, and it forces you to step around them, often in low light or while carrying something. Stairs are the worst place for this. A single item left on a step is enough to cause a fall that changes everything. People who age well at home tend to keep their main pathways almost boringly clear, not because they're minimalists, because a clear path is a safe path. And safe paths are what let someone keep climbing their own stairs at 90. Number 3, dim, uneven lighting. Older eyes need more light to see the same thing a younger person sees easily, sometimes a lot more. Yet many homes are still lit for how they looked 20 years ago, with dark hallways, shadowy stairs, and no lamp within reach of the bed. Now picture getting up at 2 in the morning to use the bathroom, half asleep, in the dark. That's one of the most common setups for a nighttime fall. Homes where people stay steady into old age usually have bright, even lighting in the places that matter most. The path from the bed to the bathroom, the top and bottom of every staircase, the kitchen, a nightlight and a lamp you can reach without standing up sound almost too simple to matter. But simple is often what works. Number 4, a slippery bathroom with nothing to hold on to. The bathroom is one of the most dangerous rooms in any home, and it's easy to see why. Wet tile, smooth tub edges, getting up and down from a low toilet, reaching over a slick surface. For a young body, none of this registers. For an older one, it's a room full of small risks stacked on top of each other. What you rarely find in the home of someone who has aged well is a bathroom left exactly as the builder made it. Somewhere along the way, they added a grab bar by the tub, a non-slip mat, maybe a seat in the shower. There's no pride lost in this. The people who stay independent longest are often the ones who made these changes early, while they were still perfectly steady, instead of waiting for a fall to force the issue. Number 5, expired medications they've stopped tracking. Open the average medicine cabinet and you'll find a small history of every ailment from the last decade, half-used bottles, pills nobody remembers the purpose of. Something expired in a year that feels suspiciously long ago. This matters more with age, and here's why. Older adults often take several medications at once, and the more bottles in the cabinet, the higher the chance of a mix-up, a double dose, or two drugs that shouldn't be combined. Old and expired medications just add clutter and confusion to something that needs to be crystal clear. People who manage aging well tend to keep a short, current, well organized set of medications, and they review it with a pharmacist or doctor now and then. This is one to handle carefully, though. Never stop a prescribed medication on your own. That's a conversation for the clinician who prescribed it. Number six, sugary drinks in the fridge, soda, sweet tea by the gallon, fruit drinks that are mostly sugar, sports drinks for people who aren't playing any sports. These are some of the easiest calories in the American diet to overdo, and they tend to come with almost nothing your body actually needs. The concern isn't a single soda at a birthday party, it's the steady, daily habit, year after year, that's been linked in a lot of research with weight gain, higher blood sugar, and metabolic trouble down the road. Here's the quiet pattern in longer lived communities around the world. Their everyday drink is usually water, sometimes tea or coffee, rarely something sweet by default. They're not fighting temptation all day. The sugary stuff simply isn't sitting in the fridge, calling out every time the door opens. What you don't keep at home, you don't drink out of boredom. Number seven, a pantry built around ultra-processed snacks, chips, cookies, crackers, and the long shelf of things engineered to be almost impossible to stop eating. Ultra-processed foods are the ones packed with additives and refined ingredients, with very little of the original whole food left. And in observational studies, diets heavy in these foods are associated with worse health outcomes as people age. Now, association isn't proof, and no single cookie is the villain here. But there's a simple truth about a kitchen. You mostly eat what's in front of you. When the easiest thing to grab is a processed snack, that's what gets eaten, quietly, day after day. Longer-lived kitchens tend to be built around simple staples. Beans, grains, fruit, vegetables, a little of whatever's fresh. Not because these people have iron willpower, because their environment does the willpower for them. Number eight, a salt shaker that lives on the table. This one's small, but it tells a story. In many homes, the salt shaker sits out at every meal, and food gets salted before anyone's even tasted it. Pure habit. Here's why it matters. For a lot of people, especially as they age, high sodium intake is linked with higher blood pressure. And blood pressure is one of the biggest drivers of heart disease and stroke. And most of the salt in the American diet doesn't even come from the shaker. It's already hidden in processed and restaurant food. So the shaker on the table is often the salt on top of the salt. This isn't about fearing salt or eating bland food forever. It's about noticing an automatic habit. In many long-lived kitchens, flavor comes from herbs, garlic, lemon, and spice, and the shaker just isn't the first thing anyone reaches for. Number nine, a liquor cabinet that's always full and always open. Alcohol is one of the most misunderstood topics in longevity, so let's be careful with it. For years, people repeated the idea that a daily drink was good for the heart. More recent reviews have pushed back hard on that, and the picture now is far less rosy, especially at higher amounts. What we can say plainly is that heavy drinking is linked with a long list of health problems and, in older adults, with a higher risk of falls and dangerous interactions with medications. The issue at home isn't a single glass of wine with dinner. It's the always stocked, always within reach supply that turns an occasional drink into a daily one without anyone deciding to. In longer-lived communities where alcohol is part of the culture, it usually shows up in small amounts with food and with other people, not alone and not by the bottle. Number 10, cigarettes and the smell of smoke indoors. This is the one place where the science isn't fuzzy at all. Smoking is one of the most powerful things a person can do to shorten their life and damage nearly every system in the body. And yes, you'll hear stories about the centenarian who smoked a pack a day for 70 years. Those people are real, but they're the rare exceptions who survived despite the habit, not because of it. For every one of them, there are countless others who never got those extra decades. Homes built for a long, strong life are overwhelmingly smoke-free ones, and that includes secondhand smoke, which carries real risk for everyone else in the house. If there's one item on this whole list where the evidence is strongest and the nuance is smallest, it's this one. And quitting at any age still improves the odds. Number 11, harsh chemical sprays and heavy air fresheners. This one's more speculative, so let's hold it a little more loosely than the others. We tend to think of air pollution as an outdoor problem. But the air inside our homes can carry its own load, from strong cleaning sprays, aerosols, and the plug-in fresheners meant to make everything smell like a pine forest. The research here is still developing, and we can't say any single air freshener causes any particular disease. What's reasonable to say is that breathing cleaner indoor air is a sensible goal, especially for older lungs and anyone with breathing conditions. You don't need a fancy solution. Opening windows, using gentler cleaning products, and cutting back on strong artificial scents costs almost nothing. It's a low-risk change with a reasonable upside, which is exactly the kind of trade that tends to pay off over decades. Number 12, a television glowing in the bedroom. The bedroom has one main job, sleep, and a TV quietly undermines it in two ways. It pushes bedtime later, one more episode at a time, and its light and noise make it harder for the brain to wind all the way down. Good sleep isn't a luxury as we age. It's tied to memory, mood, immune function, and even how well the body clears certain waste products from the brain. People who sleep well into old age often protect their bedroom like it's sacred ground. Dark, quiet, cool, and boring in the best possible way. No glowing screen, no late night scrolling in bed. If falling asleep without background noise feels impossible at first, that's usually a sign the habit had more of a grip than you realized. The bedroom just works better when it's for resting, not watching. Number 13, a worn-out mattress. Here's something people keep for far too long, often out of habit or the cost of replacing it. An old, sagging mattress. If you're waking up stiff, sore, or tossing all night, the surface underneath you may be part of the story. This matters more with age for a simple reason. Aches and poor sleep feed each other. A bad mattress can worsen back and joint pain. That pain disrupts sleep, and poor sleep makes everything from balance to mood to recovery a little worse the next day. Nobody needs the most expensive bed on the market. What matters is decent support and comfort that actually lets the body rest. A good night's sleep is one of the most underrated tools for aging well, and it's hard to get one on a mattress that gave up years ago. This is one worth spending on. Number 14, the one chair where the whole day disappears. Almost every home has it, the deep, comfortable chair or couch that's a little too easy to sink into for hours. There's nothing wrong with a good chair. The problem is when it becomes the center of gravity for the entire day. Long, unbroken sitting is linked with worse outcomes as we age, and here's the part people underestimate. Muscle and strength fade faster than most of us expect, and the less we move, the faster that decline goes. It's not that active older people never sit. It's that they keep getting up to tend a garden, cook a meal, visit a neighbor, run an errand on foot. Movement is woven through the day, not scheduled as a single event. The goal isn't to throw out the chair. It's to make sure the chair doesn't quietly become the whole day. Number 15, a kitchen with nothing fresh in it. Open the fridge in a home built for long life, and you'll usually find something growing there. Fruit in a bowl, vegetables in the drawer, something simple and real that can become a meal. Compare that to a kitchen stocked only with boxed, canned, and frozen convenience food and nothing fresh at all. The contrast tells you a lot about how someone eats without them saying a word. This isn't about perfection or expensive organic everything. Fresh doesn't have to mean fancy. Frozen vegetables count. A bag of apples counts. The point is that whole foods are actually present and easy to reach. So the healthy choice is also the convenient one, because in the end, most of us don't eat what we intend to eat. We eat what's already in the house. So step back and look at all 15 together, and a pattern shows up that's more interesting than any single item. Notice what almost none of these are. None of them are exotic. There's no rare supplement here, no gadget, no $1,000 device. Every single one is ordinary, A rug, a lamp, a mattress, a shaker of salt. And that's exactly the point. The homes that seem to support long, independent lives aren't full of special things. They're quietly missing the things that create friction, the hazards that cause falls, the foods that push blood pressure and blood sugar the wrong way, the setups that wreck sleep, the temptations that turn an occasional habit into a daily one. Look closer, and you'll see two themes running underneath everything. The first is safety, especially around falls, because a fall is one of the fastest ways a strong, older person loses independence. The second is making the healthy choice the easy choice. When the fresh food is in front of you and the soda isn't, when the path is clear and the light is bright, you're not relying on willpower and discipline every single day. Your environment carries some of the load. That's the real lesson hiding in these homes. It was never about heroic self-control. It was about setting up a space where the good defaults happen almost on their own year after year until the decades quietly stacked up. Now let's be honest about how strong the evidence really is, because it isn't all the same. Some of these sit on very solid ground. The link between falls and lost independence in older adults is about as well established as anything in this field, and the role of home hazards like loose rugs, poor lighting, and slippery bathrooms in causing those falls is well documented. Smoking is another one where the science is overwhelming and the nuance is minimal. These aren't hunches. They're some of the most consistent findings in all of public health. The middle ground is diet. We have a mountain of observational research linking high sodium with blood pressure, sugary drinks with metabolic problems, and diets heavy in ultra-processed food with worse outcomes. But remember what observational means. These studies find associations. They watch large groups over time and notice patterns, but they usually can't prove that one thing directly caused another, because the people who drink less soda often differ in a dozen other ways too. The pattern is strong and consistent enough to take seriously. It's just not the same as a controlled experiment. Then there's the softer ground, like indoor air quality from sprays and fresheners, where the research is genuinely still developing, and we should say so plainly. And there's a deeper catch that hangs over this whole topic. People who live past 100 are survivors selected by time itself. When we study their homes and habits, we can't always tell what helped them get there, what simply came along for the ride, and what they managed to survive in spite of. That's why the honest framing is never that these 15 things guarantee anything. It's that most of them line up with what decades of research suggest about staying functional as we age. Strong evidence for some, reasonable evidence for others, and a bit of plain common sense for the rest. The biggest mistake people make with a topic like this is treating it as a shopping list. They hear about a longevity kitchen and go buy one expensive superfood while the soda stays in the fridge and the rugs stay on the floor. But none of these items works in isolation. It's the whole environment that matters, not any single swap. Another common mistake is pointing at the exception. The great uncle who smoked, drank, ate bacon every morning, and lived to 98. Those people are real, and they're wonderful. But one person is a story, not evidence. For every great uncle who beat the odds, there were many others with the same habits who didn't, and we simply never hear their stories. A single survivor never cancels out a known risk. And here's maybe the most important one. A lot of people assume this is all about adding years to the very end of life. But most of what we've talked about is really about function, not just duration. Staying steady on your feet, sleeping well, keeping your strength, being able to cook, move, and live in your own home. That's the goal that actually matters day to day. And it's the goal these changes serve, whether or not anyone ever reaches 100. So what's the real answer to the question behind this whole list? Why do the homes of very long-lived people so often look like this? It's not because they found a secret. It's because, over many years, they ended up living in spaces that made the healthy, safe thing the normal thing. A clear floor so they didn't fall, good light so they could see, fresh food within reach so that's what got eaten, a quiet, dark room so they slept. A day with enough movement in it that their legs stayed strong. Any one of these on its own is small, almost too small to matter. But that's how aging actually works. It isn't decided by one dramatic choice. It's the sum of thousands of ordinary days shaped by an environment you barely notice. Your home is one of the most powerful tools you have precisely because it's always there, quietly nudging you in one direction or another. The people who age best tend to be the ones who set that home up to nudge them the right way and then let it do the work. Longevity may be the headline, but independence, strength, and a life you can actually enjoy, those are the real story. If you take just one thing from all 15, let it be this. You don't have to overhaul your life to change the odds in your favor. You can start with the floor under your feet, clear the paths, tape down or remove the loose rugs, brighten the dark corners, then move to the fridge and the pantry, making the good stuff easy and the sugary stuff a little harder to reach. Protect your sleep like it counts, because it does. None of this requires perfection, and none of it is about fear. It's about removing a little friction from the years ahead, one small change at a time. The people who live past 100 didn't get there by white-knuckling their way through life. Many of them simply lived for decades in homes that made the healthy path the easy one. You can build a home like that too, starting today, with whatever's in the room around you right now. And it's never too early or too late to begin. If this helped you see longevity a little more clearly, you can like the video and subscribe to The 100-Year Life for more evidence-based stories about living longer, stronger, and better.